Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. In this video, I'll be sharing with you a very important and interesting stuff about structuring your Next.js application in such a way that your code are well organized, and as well the code can scale, maybe with the team or whichever. So, and one thing is, I'm not going to dive into maybe API development. I'll be touching mostly on the front end part of it. So, and it's very important that we understand all of these things so that we can be able to have our way around managing complexity that come with applications that are not opinionated in structures. So first of those tips I'll be talking about is, here I have with me installed a fresh Next.js application. I've not touched it, nothing has been configured yet. So, and one thing I will say is, make sure when you are working with framework like this, I work mostly with Laravel, with React on Inertia. So make sure you stick to the default. Stick to the default. When you stick to default, it makes your life easier, especially when it has to do with update, or you have new people coming into the team, and you have new people coming into the team. Then the only time you can deviate from the default is when you have a very good reason from doing it. For doing it, a very, very good reason. Stick to the routing system, default routing system, default caching system, default build process, build tool, and every one of those things. Just stick to it, be it in Next.js as a framework or any other framework you are using. Just stick to the default. So that's by the way. Then let's talk about the main thing I have here. Let's talk about file structure. How do you organize your folders to make sure that things are clearly communicated? Be it you coming back to the code or someone else new in the team is coming to the code, they can easily find things around. So let's start from organizing component. When you talk about component now, I mean UI component in application like this, we have two levels of it. One is the global level or shared component. The second level is the local, or the one that is very, very specific to a particular domain of your application. So let's have a directory to handle, let's say, components at the root level. So this one is going to manage the shared component, that is component like maybe your input, a card component, tab component, and all of those components that has the possibility of being shared across or used across the entire application. So you put them here. Then let's come to the app. Let's say we have a post route, and let's say we have user route again. Users, we have users. So in the post route, if you have post card is dwelling in the post domain. So it is very, very reasonable for you to just open a directory here. Let's say component, or you call it components, or you call it partial. You can call it component or you call it partial, but let's stick with component. So here I can just say post card. So you can just say posts card. So you have post card. So now this component is domiciled in this post domain. So if you have user card, what you just have to do is just open that same directory and organize every local component for each of those domains. So it makes things easier for you to find and organize. So if someone is coming in, maybe your future self, you can easily find things around, meaning you don't have to jump from one directory to the other before you get things done. So now that is on component. Then another thing is, if you have to interact with the part of your application that interact with other services, APIs, query, if you are working with, let's say, a query, a request handler like React query, and all of those, how do you organize that? So in your root folder here, you can just create a directory called services. So in this directory, you can have another directory called API. So this one will contain the files, the code relating to you calling a particular API or whichever. Then if you have a request handler, you can add another one, let's say queries. So this contains a part of your code that is maybe dealing with the query. So then here, let's say you have another service that you are interacting with, you can just have a directory or a file for it. Then if you have a service you are interacting with and you cannot just categorize it here, maybe communicating with external APIs and like that. So you can just put it in, you can just have something like let's say index here. So, and you put everything there. So you have index and you can put those things there, meaning that you cannot just directly categorize it. So you just put it there. Then another thing we have to talk about here is situation whereby you have to you have a global state management libraries like maybe React, Redux Toolkit, or Zoostand. I really love working with Zoostand. So what you just have to do here is come here, then say stores. Simple. So every one of your store, maybe a user store, so you can say user store. So user store, so don't forget to preface it with store. Let's rename user store. So the reason why we have to do that, add that store to it, is when you are looking for files, you can just say, if I want to search for user now, so if I search user, so I can have user API, I can have user query and all of those. So the fact that I brought it out for me like this, I just know that, oh, this user store, then I'll pick it. So then let's now talk about working with utilities in your application. That is, you have maybe some business logic, some helper function, form validation, and all of those. Where do you keep that to make things clean, to make things well organized? How do you do that? So so what you do is come here, just create a lib directory. So inside this lib directory, don't forget it's at the root directory of your application. So let's add something like you can see utils, maybe utility functions. You can have, instead of just let's rename this to helpers. Then you can have your another part. Maybe you have a directory to store your constants. You can say consts. So then you can have another directory here that stores your form validations, then what else here? So you can have maybe config, your configuration, your application configuration. So then the next thing we have to talk about here is, okay, let me demonstrate the use of this config now. Let's say config, you can have something like your app. So this app can keep your application name. You can have something like app here. So you can say app name. So you can just say name here, just export it, export const name. So, or you say app name here, app name. So it can just be the app name here. So it means that if you want to use the name of your application, let's say in the route, let's say page, okay, this is default page here. So let's say you want to say welcome, where is it here? So getting started by editing, blah blah blah. Let's say you want to input your application name here, you can just say app name. So, and you import it from your from the app config. So it's imported now. So if we go to our browser to see, you can see if, okay, you can see now that the name is here. So now the benefit of this is if I have to change my app name, I will just change it here alone. So, and it will reflect everywhere I use that variable. Let's say test app. If I say test app, it will also change everywhere I use it. So, and that's part of the benefit of it. So I can say base URL of my application. I can export again. I can have my app description, export my app URL or whichever. So it means if I want to change anything here, I can just change it straight from here, not in my code, because these are constants. So then I can export my, let's say my environment. Am I in production, env? Am I in production or in, what's it called? Sorry, export const. So am I in production? I can have process, process.env, maybe from my environment. Then I get my environment, env again. So you can see now that it makes things easier. Let's say I define this. So it means no matter the environment, my application will keep working. So I can now come back to my my code. I can say, let's come back to page. I can say if env, my app env from app test is equal to production, is equal to production. Then I want to do this. Maybe I want to alert. Let's just say that, because this is not a client component, so but let's just leave it like that. So I want to alert this a production environment. So I'm coming back to this. I'm coming back to this, or let's just go straight to it. So this brings me to the use of constant as it is here now. I see this as a use of magic string. So this might not even actually scale. So what I would do to make sure I don't use a static, a magic string here, is that I can come to my constant. Then let me have another constant here. I can say, let's say shared. Okay, let me say app const. So in this app const, let's just export constant const. Let's say export const, because this is a constant. So let's say const app env. So I'm going to just say this production and development. So then I can add more. So part of the benefit of this is that someone can easily know how many state of environment can our application be. But if I just see production alone, how do I know that we still have some other what's it called? So let's come here and make good use of that. So I can say app underscore env. So it imported it for me from const now. So I can say dot .production or .development. So, and everywhere I want to use that, it gives me access to be able to use it straight from any of those places. And if the content of this is changing, I don't need to go to everywhere I've used that to be changing it. So meaning that we are solving the problem of the use of magic string here. So let's say I still have some other constant I want to do. Let's say user const. So user const. So I can say export const user status. So I can have user status like this, maybe active. So I can have a lot of user status, active and inactive, and like that. So if I want to reuse this now, I can come to my page and say if the authenticated user is this, is that. So I'm not using magic string. So like that. So if I have to do helpers, maybe date formatting, converting something to this, like all of those helper functions that we often reach out to based on the unique cases in the application, you just store them here. You can have maybe general helper, user helper, business, everyone, just put it here. Then these form validations now, it's very useful if you are using a form validator like Yop. So you can just save your validation here. Let's say I come to this place and I say, registration, register user, register user validation. Register user validation. So I can just come here, export. I don't have Yop installed here, so I can say export const register user validation. So I can have this. I can just say let's say email, or if you are not using something like Yop, you can still do your own like that. So that's just it. So, and you can go and reuse it, just import it wherever you want to use it. And it also gives you access to reusing that validation even on different occasions compared to you typing it. Then it makes sure that you don't just lump all your code in one component like that. So then there is another thing I still want us to talk about here. We have two more. So let's say you are working with TypeScript as I'm doing here now. So how do I organize my types? So you can just have a type directly. So, and this is where you put all your type into. All your type, you can group it by file or you group it by entity. So then one more thing, which is the last thing I'll be talking about, is if you study the routing system of Next.js is file-based. So meaning that if I want to navigate from one page to another, let me clear out this. So like here, after this now, so let's say after this, I want to have a link component in Next, so that it's going to take me back to about page. Let's say about. So, and that's what's it called? Is a page in our application. Let's say about us. So now this is how you always do it in Next. And if you've worked with framework like a library like Vue.js, Vue Router, have it a way for you to name your route. That is, you are not dealing directly with the route part. You can use name. If you work with Laravel also, there's also that benefit. So, but when I was working with Next.js, I just thought of it. How can I just simplify this? What if the route path change? So that means I have to go to everywhere I've used that route to go and be changing the path. So how do we solve that problem to make sure we don't do something like this? So the way you can solve that problem is in your root folder here, you can just say route, where is this? So directory, so you can see routes. So in the route directory, you can have based on the domain of your application. So, but here we don't have domains, or let's just say users now. So I have users route.ts. So inside this user route.ts, I can just come here and export. So I can export default, but I don't want to do that. So export consts, let's say user routes. So you can make it a constant, or you can just follow this what's it called, this naming convention. So okay, let's use a let's type it as constant. So let's say user routes, then close it. Then here we can now say let's say we want to go to the user profile. We can say index go to this part. So then let's say we want to go to, okay, we can go to login. Let's say we want to go to profile. So something like this profile, like a profile now, we'll need, most of the time we'll need that to pass in a parameter, let's say like ID or a username or so. So the way to handle that is you can do something like this. Just pass a function to it that receives ID as a parameter. Then you have something like this. So let's go back here. So let's go to our page again. So let me just use that of ID here. So let me say user what does that mean? User routes. So let's import it. User routes. Okay. So it should be imported. Okay, we have it there. So user routes dot profile. So once you have dot profile now, so I can just pass an ID of 1 to it. Okay, we set string. So let's say an ID of 2. So it shouldn't give us an issue. So let's say user profile. So we'll preview it on the, let's preview it to see what we have. So on the user profile here, once you hover it, if you check this part of my page, you see that it's user profile dot /2. So if you come back to the page now, let's say we've used that link in various places and we just want to at least make some refactoring to our code and we want to make it nicer, let's say P. So once I change it, everywhere it is used, it's also going to change. You can see now /P/2. So these are some of the things I just feel like, let me just share with you. And I know it's going to be of a benefit, a good benefit to you. So if you are watching and you have some other things you want to bring in as an input, so you can just share in the comment below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in another release.